Chaplain, Reverend Peter Nisbeck, will now say the prayers.
Good evening, everybody, and greetings from St. Giles. It's good to be with you again. So let us pray. And to the petition, Lord, in your mercy, would you reply, hear our prayer? Dear Lord, we are often preoccupied with our own concerns, but remember that there are those in the world who have lost everything, loved ones, homes, businesses, everything. So we pray for the people of Libya and Morocco, and ask that you would be present in all the efforts to relieve suffering and rebuild lives. We also remember areas of conflict and ask that people of goodwill will work for peace. Especially we continue to pray for Ukraine and Sudan. Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayer. We bring before you, O Lord, our country with its pressing concerns. We pray especially for the industrial disputes which are affecting so many people. We pray that reason and goodwill will prevail and that harmony will be restored and confidence rebuilt. We also remember those who are most vulnerable in our society and are most affected by the cost of living crisis. May we do all we can to alleviate poverty and deprivation. Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayer. And as we look around this town and this borough, we thank you, Lord, that we are able to live in this place with its many benefits. But help us not to be complacent, but to work together to solve the problems that face this council and to find solutions to the issues that face the borough: homelessness, addiction, changing patterns of commerce, and even the role of towns. Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayer. And if you care to, please join with me in the Lord's Prayer in its traditional form. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. God save the King. God bless the work of this council, and be present in this meeting. Amen. Please be seated.
Welcome, members, to this meeting. A special welcome is given to our two new members, Councillor Rebecca Lewis and Councillor Robert Moss. Can we give... Oh, is it here? Right, okay. We can wait a minute then before he actually arrives. Councillor Moss, would you like to take a seat? Thank you. Can we give a round of applause, please, for the two new councillors? Welcome those members of the public and press who have joined us this evening by YouTube, where we are hosting a live stream of our proceedings this evening. Invite members to remove their jackets if need be, please. If you'd like to remove your jackets, you may do so. You can put your tie on, Councillor Moss. Thank you. Good evening, members. Before we begin, I need to go over the usual housekeeping rules. There are no fire drills planned for this evening, so if the fire alarm sounds, please leave the building by the nearest exit and assemble in the Queen's Gardens at the front of the building. Please do not re-enter the building unless you're advised to do so. I would like to remind members of protocols around speaking during this meeting. No member should speak until invited to do so by myself. If you wish to speak, please could I ask you to raise your hand very high until you have been acknowledged. Please, would all members in the room use their microphones whenever they speak, as without them, anyone watching online will not be able to hear you. To use the microphones, please press the button at the front of the centre when invited to speak and wait a moment for the light on your microphone to come on. Please remember to turn off your microphone once you have finished. Please could I ask at the end of the meeting to make sure that you take all your belongings and waste with you. Thank you. Thank you. Before we commence with business, members will be aware that Alderman Eddie Bowden passed away this month. I propose to hold a minute's silence in tribute, after which I will invite group leaders to pay tribute. Please stand. Jeff? Thank you. Members, please be seated. Councillor Jones, would you like to lead tributes to Alderman Bowden, please?
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I find it really hard to put into words how to describe just how much of an impact Eddie had on this council and our communities. It seems all too easy to call him Mr. Newcastle, an honour he very rightly deserves, but Eddie was so much more than that. Eddie was a leader, a mentor, and a friend to a large number of us who are gathered here today. A stalwart of local politics over the last few decades, all of us have benefited from his tireless efforts to do the best for the people of Newcastle. Eddie was first elected onto the council in 1986 and in 94 took over as leader of the council until he left in 2003. During his what turned out to be first spell on the council, Newcastle was now a post-industrial town. The pits were closing, factories relocating, and heavy industry was changing. But throughout all of this, Eddie was a rallying champion for the regeneration of our communities. As the factories and pits closed, they became replaced with housing estates, not swathes of housing, but communities. You see, Eddie believed that we needed to rebuild our communities. So as the housing went up, he oversaw the building of new community facilities, many of which remain a critical part of our communities today. Eddie's impact reached much further than Newcastle. Just before I moved to the area, I was chatting with, at that time, a senior member of the Labour government. And I mentioned I was moving up to Newcastle-under-Lyme. And he told me there's only one thing you need to know about Labour in Newcastle-under-Lyme. Eddie Bowden runs everything. He runs the party, he runs the council, he runs anything. And if you want to get anywhere, make sure you keep on his good side. So when I arrived in Newcastle, I sought out Eddie, who it turns out at that point was standing for election. I was struck by how gracious he was. And when I left his house with a couple of bags of leaflets that he'd foisted on me, I knew this was a kind, witty family man who very clearly would not suffer fools gladly. And I best make sure I figure out where these roads are in Crackley, because he'll have my hide if I don't get them delivered. Eddie returned to the council in that election and continued until 2014, where he served his final year as mayor of the borough. Those of us around at the time will remember how warmly all of us were welcomed into the parlour after meetings. The spread his poor daughter must have spent hours producing, where no one was left hungry, and all of us enjoyed a full glass and a healthy dose of Eddie's wit and charm. In closing, in the Labour rooms, for the half of the chamber that's probably never been in the Labour rooms, we have a copy of a Sentinel article on the wall. The headline on that article is "Eddie stood and delivered." That's what Eddie was. He stood up for Newcastle and he delivered. We'll miss his humour and his dignity, his sharp wit and dedication to local politics. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Tagg, would you like to say a few words, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to associate with the comments that have been said by Councillor Jones and on behalf of the Conservative group. Obviously, condolences to the family of Eddie and to the Labour group. I think, as has been said, that long spell of being a councillor, even though in two parts, is an achievement on its own. I think for those people who've been on the council and know fighting elections and winning elections is always an arduous toil to keep, particularly with national winds changing in all directions all the time. I think that first spell when he was leader is really key as well, as Councillor Jones has said. I think it's also making difficult decisions at the time, because of course during that period it was the transfer of the housing stock over to Aspire, which has not been a popular decision, probably with his own group in some respects, as we saw recently when we had the motion that came to council. But I think it was the right thing to do, and obviously that money has been invested in the borough that came from the transfer of Aspire in subsequent years. And also the decision over the indoor market wouldn't have been I saw that in the Sentinel, I think it was Paul Farrelly's article, to tribute to Eddie, that was a difficult decision, of course. But in the end, it worked out well, because we've got the cinema back in the town, haven't we? So that's forward thinking in that respect. To get things done is something which Eddie had in his term as leader. I think in that second spell when he came back, I think it was a softer Eddie. I think I don't remember him much from the first time, but from the second time, obviously on the council, a softer Eddie. He ended up being the mayor of the borough, which has been said, which is an honour for anybody, and I'm sure for him, and one of his goals and ambitions when he wanted to leave the front line of politics, being leader or deputy leader, being the mayor is the next step. And then also obviously alderman from 2014. And also I wish my first impressions of Eddie were from the council newspaper, The Reporter, because obviously I had that as a resident through the door in the times when we had it, and always had Eddie's photo on the front. I think he's, the council leader using that newspaper to the best, which is publicising what the council is doing. Of course, we have the website now, don't we, as the next generation of that, and that showed that the publicity about what you're doing and getting the message across is really key, and Eddie knew that, and I thought all politicians know that. I think what we haven't discussed so far is the time he spent on the county council as well, as a county councillor for Crossheath and for Audley and Chesterton between 1993 and 2009. He served also as chairman of the county council between 2003 and 2005. And there's every time you go into the council chamber area down at Stafford, there is on the wall all of the chairman and chair ladies, of course, and Eddie is there with a nameplate under with his years as chairman. So that's a proud thing to be the chairman of the whole county council, representing the county at events across the county, and he did that well during that period. So I'm not going to say any more other than to be associated with all the comments, and the Conservative group would like to be associated with them too, and to his family, as I said. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Would any other members like to speak about Alderman Bolden, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's very difficult not to repeat what some of the things that Councillor Jones said, because he was very comprehensive in Eddie's political career. He was a formidable and unique presence in the chamber, both at Merrill Street and in the county. What people haven't mentioned was Eddie as a family man. He was unfortunate to have tragically lost two of his daughters. And when he really stepped up to the mark was when Doris got diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and he went above and beyond. And during his swan song as mayor, Doris was always present at every function as his consort and Lady Mayoress. We will also miss his wit, integrity, and firm but fair attitude as leader, deputy leader, and mayor. And he never had to resort to intimidation or showboating when the administration was held to account or scrutiny. He'll be very well missed.
Thank you. Councillor Stubbs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. From my point of view, he was a very close friend and in the early years, a very close confidant. I came onto this council 11 years ago, and Eddie, I had the pleasure, and I say pleasure in inverted commas, of having Eddie as my mentor from a Labour group point of view. I therefore faced the wrath of Eddie. I also faced the nurturing of Eddie, and I am all the better for it. Newcastle is a poorer place without Eddie Bowden, and I'd like to thank him for all that he's done for me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Stubbs. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Joe Williams and I worked alongside Eddie for many enjoyable years on this council. Eddie Bowden served the residents as a councillor for many years, and in my view, and the way that we as councillors should all aspire to. He always listened and respected the views of the residents that he was elected to serve on this council. When he was serving as leader of the council, his door was always open to fellow councillors of all the political parties and council officers alike. Taking advice from council officers who be respected the professional arm of our council, but of course, not always agreeing with them, but always keeping in mind the residents of the well-being of the loyal and ancient borough of Newcastle-under-Lyme. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Gorton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I got to know Eddie when I was elected to the county council in 2001. Eddie, of course, had been a county councillor for a number of years. He became chairman of the county in 2003. So I was there to see him in action as chairman of the county. And he was a formidable chairman. He presided over meetings, I think, with a mixture of efficiency and humour. Councillors would bob up from time to time with questions and points of order, and they would be rebuffed by Eddie with such good humour that they would sit down with smiles on their faces. Not every chairman or chairwoman can get away with that. And in spite of Eddie's many responsibilities, he did take the time to encourage and support less experienced councillors. It's already been said that Eddie didn't suffer fools gladly. Truth be told, I don't think he suffered fools at all. And he didn't really do empathy. But what he gave you was good, sound, robust advice. And I was on the receiving end of that good, sound, robust advice on more than one occasion. And I remember sitting in a Labour group meeting in silence and feeling very aggrieved over a decision, but I didn't say anything. And coming out of the meeting, I started moaning to Eddie. Big mistake. He told me in no uncertain terms that he didn't want to hear what I was moaning about. I should tell them in there, meaning the rest of the Labour group. His message was fight your corner and don't sit in silence. Advice I've tried to take, but not always have followed. Eddie had real presence, and he always seemed to me never really to be under pressure. And I remember attending a meeting when he was leader of this authority, and he was being soundly criticised by person after person about the state of the town centre. People kept asking him, where are the new shops? Where are the new businesses? What are you going to do about it, Mr. Bowden? And his reply, and I think only Eddie really could have got away with this, his reply was, we needn't worry about the town centre. The town centre was going to be okay. He couldn't go into any details, but there would be an announcement in a month or two that would prove him right. And 2 or 3 months later, the Sentinel carried details of the Castle Walk development. I think if we're honest, Mr. Mayor, many of us will serve 1 or 2 terms and will be soon forgotten. But I don't think Eddie Bowden will be forgotten. In the grey world of local government, he was a big, colourful presence. He knew how to get things done, and he did an awful lot for the people of this borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gorton. Any more speakers, please?
I got to know Eddie many years ago when he used to come into the community of Chesterton. What I liked about Eddie, you've all spoke about him being a councillor and all the good work he did. Yes, he did. But first and foremost, he was a community person at heart, and he could deliver that by being a councillor. He used to do surgeries in my one-stop shop, and we had many a debate, not always getting on. And I always remember we did a march from Chesterton when he was the leader at County Council. By Jove, we didn't get a good reception, but I had a lot of respect for Eddie. It isn't about what colour you are, it's about what type of person you are. And rest in peace, Eddie. His funeral was fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. We now commence the formal business of this evening, please. So into the agenda now, members, and starting with agenda item 1, do we have any apologies, please? I have one, Andrew Parker, maybe attending or maybe coming a bit later. Councillor Sweeney.
Yeah, 4, please, Mr. Mayor. We've got Councillor Jones, Councillor Skelling, Councillor Crisp.
Chris.
The 4th one. Councillor Gary White. Sorry about that.
Thank you. The next agenda item is item number 2, declarations of any interest. Are there any declarations of any interest from any members or officers in relation to any items of business contained with this agenda? No, carry on. Agenda item 3, members, is to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 26th of July 2023. You will find the minutes on pages 5 to 15 of your agenda. Councillor Tagg.
Thank you. I'll move the minutes. I've just also noticed that the apologies of Councillor Beeston were registered last time, but we haven't done it this time. And I think, looking at our committee clerk, I think there is an apologies in for a series of meetings, and I think we should accept that and note that as well, please. So, Councillor Beeston.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. And note.
Move the minutes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Members, invites will soon be sent out for the Remembrance Day. Sorry, I'll start again. Members, invites will be sent out for the Remembrance Day parade and church service on Sunday, the 12th of November. I hope that as many of you as possible are able to join me at this important event. Also, as part of the 850th anniversary celebrations for Newcastle, a performance of the famous mock mayor ceremony will be held on Sunday, the 19th of November at 1 p.m. in the town centre. Now, can I ask, in the town centre where it's going to be held? Is it going to be outside the Guildhall? Is it going to be?
The performance circle by Wilco and then walking round to the market.
Thank you. Isn't it funny? Every time you have the mock mayor making, I become the mayor, isn't it? Anyway, moving on. Everyone is welcome to attend this event. Please contact my mace bearer, Glenn Martin James, for further details, please. Members, we now turn to the first substantive item of business of this evening's agenda, which is committee allocations. A copy of the report can be found on pages 17 to 20 of your agenda. A supplementary report detailing the changes proposed by each of the two groups has been placed on your tables. There are no competing nominations. Councillor Simon Tagg, would you please now introduce the report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, as a consequence of the two by-elections that took place on the 7th of September now, it seems ages ago, doesn't it? We've also got two new councillors in the hall tonight, and I'd like to welcome Councillor Lewis and Councillor Moss to their positions. May they have a fruitful time on the council representing the residents of Audley and of Nutton. So what we have here is the, particularly in the supplementary, which I'm looking at here, is the nominations from the Labour group to bring the parity of the balance back up to scratch. And obviously the two Conservatives have stepped down, as it says there, back into being substitutes on those meetings. There's also the impact on the outside bodies relating to Wally's Quarry, Nutton Quarry, and the community centre management committees as well. So I'd like to move those recommendations, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Councillor Sweeney, would you like to second the motion, please?
With great pleasure, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, members. All the changes to the committees and nominations set out in the report and supplementary report agreed. Thank you. Members, the next substantive item of business on this evening's agenda is the Treasury Management Annual Report for 2022 to 2023. A copy of the report and associated papers can be found on pages 21 to 31 of your agenda. Councillor Sweeney, would you please introduce the report, please?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The CIPFA Code of Practice on Treasury Management recommends that members should be informed of Treasury Management activity at least twice a year. This is the second one of those two. Activity is required to be carried out in accordance with the annual Treasury Management Strategy approved by Council each February for the forthcoming year. The Council is provided with Treasury Management Advisory Services by Arling Close Limited, and their reports on the agenda. It's quite interesting if you're into that sort of thing. The annual report covers the Treasury position as of 31st of March 23, the economy and investment rates 22-23, compliance with Treasury limits and prudential indicators per the agreed 22-23 strategy, and the investment outturn for 22-23. £17 million investments were held at 31st of March 2023, which achieved an average return of 2.32% and generated £578,000 worth of income. A greater than budgeted income was received due to receipt in advance of government grants and the increase in interest rates during the year. I'm pleased to confirm that all Treasury limits and prudential indicators were complied with during the year. Borrowing was not required at all during this year, and this report went to the Audit Committee and was looked at by the Audit Committee before it came here. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Tagg, would you second the motion, please?
Pleasure in seconding that, and just to say that Councillor Sweeney is one of those type of people that like these type of reports.
Thank you. Members, we now move on to the debate on this item. Can I ask you to indicate by raising a hand if you wish to speak? Councillor Stubbs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In all honesty, it's just a quick thank you to the finance team for the work that they've put into this. As a former finance officer and a local authority myself, I'm fully aware of the joy that they would have had when they were writing this. Don't be kidding that this was hard work. They really enjoyed doing this stuff. So, a lot of councillors will pass it by and it'll just be something that gets filed until the next time. And actually, for those that can't sleep or really do want to invest in their councillorship, then they really should take 5 minutes to read this document. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Stubbs. Any more speakers, please? No, that's absolutely fine. Councillor Tagg.
To sum up.
Okay. The proposal is that the Treasury Management Report for 2022 to 2023 to be noted. All those in favour? Can you put your hands up high, please? All those against? Any abstentions? Fine. Members, the motion is carried. Members, the next item of business on this evening's agenda is the leader's statement. A copy can be found on pages 3 to pages 5 of your supplementary agenda pack. I'm going to ask Councillor Simon Tagg if he would like to introduce his statement. I will then invite members to put questions to the leader or relevant portfolio holders. I will take each paragraph of the statement in turn and will invite up to 3 questions at a time before I ask the leader to respond. If I could remind members, this isn't a debate. Once the leader has responded, there is no right for members to reply. Councillor Tagg, would you like to introduce your statement, please?
Happy to introduce it, move it, and obviously here to answer questions or comments relating to items on the leader's statement. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Members, we note in paragraph 1 that Cabinet met on the 19th of September 2023. And we move to paragraph 2, which is about the town centre regeneration update. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 2, please? We'll start with Councillor Panther first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is to the portfolio holder for Town Centre and Finance. I'm really pleased that there is an emphasis on creating public open spaces, homes, offices and shops to help revitalising our town in these plans. By enhancing footfall and supporting local business, these developments will undoubtedly breathe new life into the town centre, making it a more vibrant and attractive place for both residents and visitors. Can the finance portfolio holder please comment on how the finances will stack up in this case? Thank you.
Thank you. That's question 1. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Incidentally, my comment and question follows on from the previous councillor's comment quite nicely. The developments within the town centre seek to increase footfall, seek to regenerate, seek to bring in people to spend money in businesses. And key to that will be the situation with the new car park, given that the parking strategy seeks to centralise car parking at the new site. Just
bear with me, Councillor Jones. Is this a question to the leader or a statement?
Sorry, I thought it's a comment that will become a question.
Okay.
Given that the reduction of other car parking around the town centre into that multi-storey will mean that that's one of the main places for people to park. Can the leader confirm that the council will charge parking rates in line with those charged in council car parks? Or is the intention for that car park to charge parking rates at a more commercial level, more in line with perhaps an NCP car park?
Okay, that's the second question. Councillor Whedon.
I think the whole idea of this, the town centre regeneration and what's going on is great news for Newcastle town centre. Progress is being made with the regeneration projects as part of the future High Street Fund, and Town Deal is gathering pace. The decision to appoint Capital & Centric, nationally renowned property developer, shows that this council is committed to ensuring that this transformation is both sustainably has both sustainable goals and is affordable. Capital & Centric's proposed approach for York Place and Midway, including the retention of parts of the original building's frame, is not only environmentally responsible, but also demonstrates a long-term vision for the town's development, its advancement and also protecting heritage. I'm pleased that the Cabinet has referred the report to both the economic scrutiny and also the finance and asset scrutiny, and that Cabinet members and officers will be available to be answering questions for the councillors. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tagg, would you like to respond, please?
Okay, thank you. I'm going to leave the detailed finance question from Councillor Panter to Councillor Sweeney, but I'll answer the other two very quickly. Thank you for your comments, Councillor Jones, on that. I think you probably must understand the rationalisation programme on the other car parks, I think, because that is an opportunity which is arising, which we obviously made a pledge within our local plan to bring forward brownfield sites. So these are some of the brownfield sites we're bringing forward. We've also made a pledge to, we've listened to people, but we've also had already decided that we're going to leave parking spaces on a number of those sites, such as King Street, Hassel Street and Goose Street. But there is an opportunity to use that space to bring in income for the council, and also possibly we can't prejudge what will go on there, but some homes for people in and around the town centre. So that's the driver for that. The second point on the car parking charges, if you would have read the cabinet agenda that came out and the financial modelling around the car park, it is going to be a more of a standard car parking charges for the new car park, but that doesn't preclude any of the offers which we've brought in other car parks being extended to that for either a full-time period or for periods around Christmas, etc. That's yet to be decided, but I will say plainly that the financial model for the car park is this is a modern car park, which will be, if you can never have a pleasure to drive into a car park, this will be one of them. And I think it will have to compete with the other car parks in the private car parks in the town. And we're investing, a lot of money into this. And I will say also that it's obviously a key driver for the regeneration of the Rycroft and for the things such as a hotel, hopefully, such as housing, such as the York Place development for easy, clean, accessible parking nearby. And as you do in every town, you have to pay for that.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Councillor Brockie, your
Councillor
question.
Sweeney to answer the.
Oh, sorry, I do apologise. Councillor Sweeney.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Panter, for your question. The way went through cabinet yesterday, we agreed that we would take on Captain Centric to do the plans and the business case for York Place, just a maximum of £256,500. Then if we're happy with that, we can then progress the thing using capital accounts. If we do, we haven't agreed we will yet, but if we use capital centric, we can follow the case along. Now, capital centric's funding model, if we use them, is interesting. We, as an authority, would borrow the money to do York Place, basically to finish it, complete it, get it ready. Then when it's done, capital and centric come in and give us the money that we spent on it, including the interest that we've incurred as part of the borrowing requirement. So we then give it to capital and centric. They manage it, they run it. It's their shopping centre. It's in their interest to make it as profitable as they can, and I'm sure they will. So within sort of 2 years, perhaps from beginning to end, the debt's gone, and capital centric got the building. And we've been to capital centric buildings before, and they're quite inspirational in what they do. And I like the ethos, the way they work, and it's a very good model. This, and I'm very happy to support it. But basically, it clears the debt away within sort of 2 years, 2.5 years, something like that, and we get all the money back. We get the interest back, and we get the cost of everything we spent on it. If we go with capital centric for the final build. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brockie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If we're planning to get metaphorically into bed with a joint venture development delivery partner, nationally renowned or not, we should perhaps make sure we're clear about what we want from the relationship and that what we want is what we're going to get. Successful developers such as Capital and Centric make money, especially out of struggling councils whose visions may be getting distorted by financial pressures. There will be a price for sharing the risk, there always is, that's how it works. Rather than share the risk, why can't we just value engineer the projects in line with what we can afford, what we can deliver, and what we can provide, in line with the priorities of the real people who live in the real Newcastle?
Thank you, Councillor Brockie. Councillor Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've never heard someone talk about making money and sound so negative as Councillor Brockie's just sounded. I was at the planning committee where we gave consent for the Castle car park, and I want to go one better than Councillor Tagg. I want to say that I'm confident that when you drive into that car park, you will know joy for the first time in your life. That's if it's delivered in accordance with the vision that we saw. I want to say two things about the car park. So 2 comments and a question. The comments are, let's remember it's a replacement for the Midway car park. And this replacement car park is a necessary step towards the regeneration of the rest of the Rycroft site, which we all desperately want to see. And I'm very glad is now happening. Can I ask the leader to give us an update on the construction timetable for that car park, please?
Thank you, Councillor Holland. And one more, Councillor Fox-Hewitt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Given the vision offered by Capital and Centric to work to develop those community assets and create small communities, the ask is, can council explore the viability of potentially compulsory purchasing the Sky building, for example, and working with Capital and Centric to bring that project to finally fruition, move the town centre forward, much like the plans we just heard from Councillor Sweeney, where we could borrow the money to build and develop and finish the building, and they could perhaps purchase and run the building. Is that something we could explore as part of the ongoing discussions? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, on Councillor Holland's comments, thank you for those. And just to say that we hope within the next week or so, we will have work starting on the site of the car park, and then that will be a 44-week build project. So we're looking for the summer of 2024 for that to open. At that time, the Midway will then close, and hopefully, as Councillor Sweeney said, we'll be moving down a process with Capital and Centric in their model, which we discussed at Cabinet on yesterday. And hopefully that will then lead to the redevelopment of the Midway. I think, responding to Councillor Brockie, what I would say is, obviously she came to the Cabinet meeting, she's read the Cabinet report. I think there's some issues there which probably she needs to clarify herself in her own mind over this, because I think perhaps if she could meet with I'm calling him a councillor, with Simon McKenny, our officer, he will obviously fill her in on some of the details which she may not have picked up in the Cabinet report. As for Councillor Fox-Hewitt, I think we'd all like to see something done with the Sky building. I think it's a sad indictment of previous council decisions that building is there, thankfully, before I was leader, but we won't go into that perhaps at another time. And I think, there are specific rules around compulsory purchase, and it has to meet those before that could be approached. And of course, we are continually, hi Andrew, we're continually talking to our officers and making sure that they're in touch with whoever is trying to gain control of the building. There are vehicles on there most days, but there's no action to actually finish off the building. So what we need to do is, and the ideal route for this would be for the developer, whoever gains control of it in the end, to finish that building off as per the plans, or bring forward another development. But with the relationship we're having with and the model with Capital and Centric, there is possibilities to do more with them. And I think in the October Cabinet, we are looking to announce even more work on our regeneration schemes that will involve, hopefully, not only Capital and Centric, but other developers on the Rycroft site. So keep your eyes open for that. I think I've answered all 3 there, Mr. Mayor.
You have, but there's one more. Councillor Stubbs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Quite a simple one, really. From my reading of the document, Capital and Centric will pay either the full market value or the total costs, whichever is the larger. Does that include the value of the land? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Stubbs. Any more questions on paragraph 2, please? No. Councillor Tagg, do you want to answer?
I was going to cast to Councillor Sweeney, but he's looking a bit sick on this. We'll get a written answer on that just to clarify, seeing as Councillor Sweeney is not able to answer at this moment.
Okay, thank you. Members, paragraph 3 is about the medium term financial strategy for 2024 to 2025 to 2028 to 2029. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 3, please? Councillor Stubbs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is a gap of 730,000 for play awards, a gap of 471,000 for additional borrowing, 500,000 for temporary accommodation, and a potential 500,000 loss of new homes bonus. Does the leader hold the efficiency board, which he chairs, responsible for this shortfall, or does he blame events at Westminster for the gap in the medium-term financial strategy?
Thank you, Councillor Stubbs. Councillor Tagg.
Is that the only question? Or
Well, there's two more.
well,
We'll give you three, and that's really it. Councillor Waring.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm pleased to see that the medium-term finance strategy reflects a proactive approach to addressing the challenges faced by the council by inflationary costs and the increasing service demands that councils across the country are currently dealing with. Please, would the portfolio holder update the council on the current in-year revenue position, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waring. I think we've got more. Sorry, I do apologise. Councillor Brockie.
We just need, I think, a time frame for the consultation process, which is going to be going ahead under the asset management strategy by the relevant committee, in order to prepare for the consultation period, which obviously will predicate the sale of the rest of the town centre car parks, if indeed they're needed to be sold. It's a problem because other towns, Hassel Street apparently is being very much redressed to the great joy of the business holders because they're going to leave some parking spaces there. However, other town centre parking sites are being considered for disposal in order to raise funds. For, among other things, the Castle car park, originally projected to be 7 million and now 17 million. It's no wonder they need the money. What I would like to see is a time frame for the consultation process and some idea of when these decisions about which car parks are going to be made. I'm sure it'll be forthcoming, but we don't have opposition representation on that committee, and therefore it would be helpful if we could know as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brockie. Councillor Tagg.
Okay, I think that last one from Councillor Brockie is for the item after, but quickly answer that. Obviously, Cabinet will be receiving the reports on that. Efficiency Board is dealing with the budgetary issues which are on this item, but again, look out for Cabinet reports and there will be a full consultation process as per the consultation policy we do have on sale of land. The other two, thank you, Councillor Stubbs, and that gap, and I'm pretty certain where those problems have come from. I think as we see the inflationary increases that are affecting the council and all councils and in all businesses and in all residents have come from not only the result of extended lockdown and freezing the economy and the whole shock that took, but also the war in Ukraine, which has dragged on and has led to increases in fuel and all sorts of things. But I think that's affected obviously the need for the pay award, which of course is higher than we would have expected, and also for the temporary accommodation is a result of the need for temporary accommodation, result of families falling into financial difficulties as the result of those things I've just talked about that are actually in item 3. So I think what we're going to do, as it says there, is write to the government and our local MPs to make the case. But I did see the front page of the MJ magazine, which of course Councillor Stubbs will read, and it showed that all councils are making the issue nationally to the government and the LGA about the temporary accommodation, which has rocketed in price. We don't receive the full amount of money from the government. I think we should, and that's something that we'll be obviously looking to do. And I'm going to hand over to Councillor Sweeney for the question for Councillor Waring over the in-year budget.
Councillor Sweeney.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Waring, for the question. At the moment, the revenue budget is in a balanced position. This time last year it was £129,000 out. This time we've got a balanced position. This is mainly due, I think, to the budget holders and the finance team closely monitoring their spend in conjunction with myself. But I think it's an encouraging position for this year that we are actually in balance now, as opposed to £129,000 over 12 months ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a statement that is absolutely aimed at deflecting away from the real issues that we have with the finances in this council. And that's one of absolute mismanagement. If we take, for example, the pay award, we've just heard about a larger than expected pay award. Well, if that was larger than expected, I don't know what rock you were living under, because most organizations have budgeted a 5% for a pay award. Yet this authority chose to budget a 3% for a pay award. That's not exclusive to local authorities. Other local authorities have budgeted a 5%, and we often hear of the authority known as Gedling for some reason, but I looked at their budget and they had budgeted a 5%. So the impact of the pay award was much less for them. They had a much lower shortfall. All we get from this is deflection away. It's not the council's fault. It's not anybody's fault. It seems to be the war in Ukraine. That seems to be the problem, and lockdown seems to be the problem. Well, I think the actual problem, and we can trace it right back to those 55 fated days of Liz Truss, who destroyed this economy, causing mortgage rates to go through the ceiling, which is probably being passed on and increased the cost of housing people who present as homeless. And to turn around and say that, everything, we're doing our best, but Ukraine and COVID and lockdown has caused all of these issues, I think is deflecting away from the real problem. We look within this budget, the extra £500,000 increase on borrowing. We warned you less than 12 months ago that borrowing was going to be, it was a volatile market. And what's happened? Double the amount that we're going to have to allocate for borrowing.
1 minute, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that this council absolutely needs to get a grip on where the finances are going. And my question is, what's in place to stop this gap continually expanding? It's 2.75 this year. It's 5 point something over the lifetime of the MTFS. What's it going to be in the next quarter, the quarter after that, next year? Are we going to be continually facing this, or is there some secret plan to get us through this?
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Fox-Hewitt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this question is particularly pertinent given the administration's motion they brought forward tonight. I note that within the MTFS, it's quite light on detail on the costs associated with the council's carbon reduction commitments. Can the leader give an assurance that we are, one, on target to meet our 2030 target, and two, that we have the finances in place to resource those commitments? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Before Councillor Tagg answers, any more speakers on paragraph 3, please? No, Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for those. Just to meet head on this mismanagement claim, we've just had Councillor Sweeney outline the fact that the year we set the budget in February and we're working through it, we're actually bang on at the moment. So I think that just shows the mismanagement, apparently, which has been said is bunkum. Also, this Councillor Jones is wrong. This council budgeted for 4%, and most councils, I believe, did do that. But of course, we know that inflation is much higher than was predicted back in those. We do. It's now coming down, isn't it? So hopefully we'll see light at the end of the tunnel on that. So I think, the comments from Councillor Jones are just obviously political for his, I was going to say for the leaflets, but there's no by-election, but I'm sure it will. But then he goes off in a tangent and starts blaming Liz Truss and all of that. So he must think there's a national issue to it as well, why he's trying to trash the local council's reputation as well. When actually we're providing good services, we're providing improved services, much more so than when Labour are in control. And remember, we've saved £10 million since 2018. Labour running the council in 2017. And look what we've done. We've put right their recycling system that was a mess. We've reopened Kidsgrove Sports Centre when they closed it. We've reopened Kidsgrove Sports Centre after they closed it. We have staff in this council so we can actually run elections when they didn't. They didn't do this when they had £10 million more to spend. So I see those savings that we've made over the years. We've actually enhanced services along the way as well, whereas Labour's record is there to be seen and to be shamed. Those people that led the council at that stage, some of them still sitting here now. On the point with the carbon reduction and the net zero target for 2030 for the council, we've got a 50 target for the entire borough. There is a paper coming to October which will set out our plan to get to net zero, and it says in the report, I asked for that to be put in there, that obviously the MTFS will need to reflect that, and we are over a 7-year period to get to 2030. So there is time to there will be a cost, obviously, but there will be time to do that, and that will be we're not going to do like push it back to 2035 or anything like that. After today's announcements, we're going to stay with 2030.
1 minute, Councillor Tagg.
And work to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, paragraph 4 is about the Assets Management Strategy 2023 to 2028. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Is this on paragraph 3 or the next question?
Sorry, no, I'm paragraph 4, apologise.
Right, okay, then that's fine. So, Councillor Tagg, would you like, I'll start again. Members, paragraph 4 is about the Assets Management Strategy 2023 to 2028. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 4, please? Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm delighted as a resident of both Kidsgrove and the wider borough for any, let alone substantial investment in both Newcastle and Kidsgrove town centres. I'd like to ask the leader for more information regarding the shared public services hub in Kidsgrove, because as far as I'm aware, we already have one. And what will happen to that building when it's transferred elsewhere?
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you. In this asset management strategy, it is clear to see the links between making best use of the council assets to aid regeneration and improving services for our local residents. As the report says, this administration has delivered the 6.1 million land asset sales put forward by Labour when they ran the council before 2018. Does the portfolio holder find it surprising that now the Labour group appear to be against asset sales to bring in much needed capital receipts? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And one more, Councillor Stubbs. Before, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick one from residents in Chesterton. I've been asking about the 3 places of input in this asset management strategy. The main one being Brickhill Lane in Chesterton. Main thing is he wanted to ask for clarification exactly where it is and what consultation they have had with this actual process of being put in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tagg.
Taking that one last, obviously we can ensure that you have those, the plan for that if the director could, or deputy chief exec could do that. I think at the moment there's been no consultation because these are just proposals in an asset management plan. The cabinet in its resolution yesterday asked for the portfolio to work up plans for a consultation. And we do have a consultation, as I said earlier, in response to Councillor Brockie, we have a consultation process that we have to go through on disposal. We will ensure that is gone through. That was passed in 2016 with support of all of the councils to ensure we did the proper consultation with people. Councillor Allport, I think, welcomes the investment, yes. And I think as part of the Kidsgrove Town deal, there is the plan to have the shared service hub, which Kidsgrove Town Council are in favour of. And I think it went through the town deal board, I think, initially when Councillor Stubb was the representative on there as well. So he knows all about it. We can let you have more information on how that will work and any ramifications for the Victoria Hall part of the Kidsgrove Town Council part. And I'm sure any conversations with Paul will also fill you in on that. And could you just remind me the third speaker, the one in between was? Because I did. Amy, yes, thank you. Yes, I'll hand over to Councillor Sweeney for that. Sorry, Amy.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Bryan. Yeah, we carried out what was the Labour Party's sale of assets, which we did. Sadly, I think I don't think the Labour Party want to sell anything now. Strangely enough. And I'm very disappointed by it. I think it's a very short-sighted thing. It's being put on the leaflets, you know, no investment in Newcastle, it goes down well. But that's the reality of it. I think it's playing silly politics and it's what they're going to do. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate for people of Newcastle, to be honest with you, but I think it's what they intend to do. Thank you.
Thank you. One more question. I think we've actually got Councillor Jones.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. In terms, could the leader remind me that the previous asset strategy was based on a list of assets that were put together by a group that was created by a motion by his group, supported by other opposition groups, and that list of assets was put in place by opposition, now administration councillors, and not by the previous Labour administration councillors. I'm aware that he was at that meeting, and the minutes seem to indicate that it was that group that identified the assets, not the previous Labour administration. I wonder if he could confirm that.
Okay, before you answer that, then Councillor Stubbs.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to correct the leader, because obviously he's not read the minutes of the town deal board meetings that I attended. At no point was the hub discussed in more detail than we're going to build a hub, and that was it. So any accusation that the town council's in favour of it is rubbish. In addition to that, Mr. Mayor, in the strategy, it says that Kidsgrove Town Council will lease the shared services hub with no consultation with town councillors, stakeholders, or local residents. What is his plan if the town council does not lease the building at resident expense due to an increase in the local precept?
Councillor Waring, third question before we go, Simon. Councillor Waring.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a comment, really. At no time has Kidsgrove Town Council, as of yet, agreed to lease the shared services hub from the Borough Council. It's in the strategy, it's a proposal. And Councillor Stubbs has freely admitted that a lot of his information has come from hearsay. And I think that he's speculating wildly on this. So I think it will all be clarified at the council meeting next week for him. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Tagg.
Yeah, and just to follow up on what Councillor Waring just said, I mean, there is a letter from the 7th of June which says from the clerk, Sue Davis, that the town council meeting on the 19th of May 2022, I assume Councillor Stubb was there, has resolved to submit an application to the board, that's the town deal board, for offering the commitment of the town council to become the anchor tenant and owner of the proposed shared hub, which is planned to be part of the town deal project. That's a letter there, which I can, I'm sure can be sent around to people. Councillor Jones, you're actually wrong, because Cabinet puts together the asset management strategy, not full council. It's a delegated decision. So he's gone back 2 further years to the asset committee that this council had. As quietly a member of that, so were Labour members, so were independent members, and the whole rainbow of different groups we had at that time, because there was no overall control. But the asset management strategy we inherited was the Labour Party administration's asset management strategy, and that delivered that £6.1 million. And of course, Councillor Sweeney says there's a different approach now. You're in opposition, not wanting to, and yet you then question the finances for our regeneration schemes. Well, some of this income, as it says in the in item 4 there, helps us to move forward on those regeneration plans we've just talked about. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other speakers on paragraph 4, please? No, thank you. Members, paragraph 5 is about the local planning enforcement plan. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 5, please? My God, there is silence. Oh, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's a good plan. Congratulations.
Councillor Tagg.
I agree with Councillor Jones.
Okay. Any more speakers on paragraph 5, please? No, that's absolutely fine. Members, paragraph 6 is about the delivery of a homeless hub. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 6, please? Councillor Report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to congratulate the administration for this comprehensive and multidisciplinary approach to homelessness. I was just concerned at the scope of this, as a lot of homeless issues now are for families, not just individuals, and also people with complex mental health needs. Could the leader inform me if these things have been taken into consideration with this project?
Thank you. Councillor Rees.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If at the end of the March 2025 funding round you aren't successful in obtaining further ongoing funding, will there be a contingency plan in place, or will services cease with the subsequent job losses? And in addition, in line with cross-government strategy, you aim to end rough sleeping in the borough by 2025. Do you have, or will you be providing data to show if you're on target to meet this aim?
Thank you. And the last is Councillor Barker.
Thank you. the delivery of the homeless hub. It's fantastic news that the council has secured funding via the Shared Prosperity Fund to further address the issue of rough sleeping in the borough. A proposed new facility offering safe emergency accommodation, practical guidance, and essential services is a significant step towards providing a helping hand to individuals experience homelessness. Does the portfolio holder agree with me that the fact this facility will be operational both day and night, providing access to healthcare, financial advice, it will therefore offer a comprehensive approach to addressing the challenges faced by those in need?
Thank you, Councillor Barker. Councillor Tagg, would you like to respond?
Yes, and then I'll hand over to Councillor Heason, the portfolio holder. I think on the issue of the 2025, that's the government target. And obviously this initial funding has come through the Shared Prosperity Fund, as Councillor Barker has just said. And I think, the government have made a commitment there. Hopefully the government, after an election, whoever that will be, will carry on that commitment, and that will need funding to carry on these establishments which we're setting up. So I think, a lobbying point for our MP who wins the election to ensure that we get that post 2025. And I think the other question, Councillor Allcott and your Allport would, sorry, excuse me, was about just two councillors merged together, isn't it, their names? Yeah. About the families. I think this is more about those individuals that individually present as homelessness in our town centres and getting them off the streets into that accommodation. We did talk about earlier about the temporary accommodation for families, etc., and that's a different issue which we obviously already discussed. But I'll hand over to Councillor Heason now, who can respond to Councillor Barker and any of the other points that have been raised.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Councillor Heason.
Thank you. Yeah, I have to admit, I'm really, really pleased that we've got the funding for this. I know we call it the Homeless Hub, but its official title is the Multi-Agency Assessment Centre with Accommodation. Bit of a mouthful, I know, but it probably tells you a lot more about what's on offer, particularly working with rough sleepers and entrenched rough sleepers, who are the most vulnerable people in our society today that really find difficulty accessing services. And this is going to be an opportunity to work through the multi-agency approach with various organisations, and that's whether it's housing providers, works and pensions, healthcare, and basically building relationships and trust with these individuals to develop paths to move on to non-emergency accommodation and give them the building blocks to sustain their own tenancies and potentially to get jobs. So, I think we'd all welcome that. What I will say is it's not just for rough sleepers for advice. It is also going to be a one-stop shop to support all those who are vulnerable, including families. So that's to help them to get the right help and support during the current climate. I think I've answered everything, but obviously give me a shout if I haven't.
Thank you, Councillor Heason. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was present at Scrutiny Committee when this item came to scrutiny, and it was a great opportunity to discuss and explore things with the officer. I think some of the things that are going into this are really great. But I think it does raise the concern of the impact on the authority of homelessness, and in particular, my very big concern that for us, it is going to become the equivalent of adult social care for a unitary or a county authority. The provision of emergency accommodation is a statutory responsibility of this council, much like provision of adult social care is for a unitary or a county. And we've heard for years that it is those costs that are crippling those authorities. And we are seeing a significant surge in the cost of homelessness, as we've seen previously in the MTFS. My question is, what steps is the authority taking to guard against that surge in cost I listened intently when the leader mentioned lobbying of costs from government and that we only receive partial funding of that. What's the plan? What are the steps? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Before we answer, any more speakers on paragraph 6, please? No, Councillor Tagg.
I mean, that's the question which every council is asking, isn't it? As I said, the front page of the MJ magazine was the cry for help that's coming from some councils in a much worse situation than we are. And that's why we have a lobbying tool which has been used. Councillor Sweeney lobbied very successfully along with other councils for more funding during the COVID pandemics and the lockdowns to help the council. And we're in a situation now where that dual problem of cost of living and the renting issues brought on by actually some government policies relating to renting has actually exacerbated the issue. And I think, again, our MPs are there to listen to us and take up our cases, and we'll be approaching them on this. And we'll also be working very closely with the other councils in Staffordshire who have got the same issue through the Leaders Board, and we've discussed that at a Leaders Board meeting last week, and also through the LGA as well, and through the District Councils network, which we're involved in as well, to make that case to government for more funding as we go forward.
Thank you. Councillor Barker.
Could I just say, wonderful work going on with the homeless, but having worked with them, and I'm going to bring Councillor Grocott in here, we are aware we have a lot of homelessness in our community. Difficult job.
Lily, is this a question to the leader?
Question, yeah. How are you going to deal with them all? Because the thing is, a lot of them do not want to be helped. All they want is a bit of food and going somewhere else. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barker. Councillor Tagg, to finalise,
yes, I think
please.
The point Lillian's making is fair. And of course, she's come back a second time, Lily. You're not supposed to come back a second time. And then, yeah,
I know. I did allow.
But I'm going to answer the question. I'm going to say that we have amazing staff in this council that work on the front line. Our vulnerability hub, if people remember, the corporate review that they had was seen as almost like industry national leading on that. So I think we've got a really good basis to help people. Again, some people, as you say, it's very difficult to help them because of their complex problems. But I think what we're talking about under this item is a way of helping them and getting them off the street, and then not just getting them off the street for the night and then the next day they go back out. It's to keeping them off the street for longer, to really work on them and hopefully reset their lives so they can start again, which is obviously what we all want for them. And I'm sure underneath they don't want to be out on the streets. They want to get over their problems and prosper.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Members, paragraph 7 is about the future delivery of occupational health services. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 7, please? Councillor Bett. Sorry, Councillor Bentley-Smith.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. The leader will know that I take a close interest in sickness absence. Not merely because of the statistics, but in terms of the underlying causal relationship. And I'm very much looking forward to Monday when we look at the sickness absence update report in scrutiny. When we look at that, and not to preempt what's coming on Monday, we do see that it's higher than we would want. But of course, we're not, as a local authority or any other organisation, an outlier, because sickness absence has changed post-COVID. So therefore, I do welcome the future delivery proposals, where the aim is to establish a robust and supportive service model, thereby enabling the council to sustain its commitment to staff health, which is very important to me, reduce sickness absence, which is then as a result of the improvements, and uphold our compliance with health and safety obligations. I do put the emphasis on staff health, and compliance follows thereon. So would the leader agree with me that it's reasonable for me to anticipate that the new arrangements will result in improvements in delivery, efficiency of delivery and effectiveness of delivery. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Before you answer that, councillor Tagg, any more questions on paragraph 7, please, to the leader? No, councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Batley-Smith, for those comments. And he's quite right. Will be a report that's going to scrutiny on Monday night. It offers a drill down into the facts, figures, and the history, where we're coming from. Also, the national picture as well, which has had an impact, as Councillor Batley-Smith has mentioned. And I would say, obviously, the measures we're putting in place will be delivered through the new occupational health service as part of our sickness reduction plan. And as you'll see on the next item, sickness is still an issue in this council, and for many reasons as well, but mainly for really people waiting to get into appointments at hospital, to get their often physical issues dealt with. And we are looking at ways of trying to circumvent that. We had, I think I mentioned last time, a good sort of conversation with the unions over that at the joint meeting which we had, and they put forward a proposal that our HR officer is looking into. So hopefully that will have an impact. But I've been really interested to see what scrutiny says and the action any scrutiny suggests we take on Monday night, because we're willing to listen, and I will be there at that meeting along with our HR officer to present the report and then listen to the committee what they put forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, paragraph 8 is about the financial and performance review report on the first quarter for 2023 to 2024. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 8, please? Councillor Brockie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Performance data at 76% on track in these troubled times is not unexpected. There are a lot of adverse pressures which have already been mentioned. There is uncertainty in the sector, and a lot of these factors cannot be future-proofed with accuracy. However, staff sickness, absence and wage demand should not be regarded as scapegoats just because human beings are involved and we can do things to them. Workers faced with continual change in their conditions and reductions in their confidence to cope with change tend to leave or tend to get ill. Can we be assured that the stability and continuity of our workforce will remain a priority when considering cost-saving measures in line with the Council's mission statement, while we challenge, push and stretch our way to improvement? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brockie. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On looking through the performance review on the indicators, I noticed that the waste collection is below target on certain indicators. I wonder if the portfolio holder could update me on an issue that I've had from a resident, which I found quite alarming. This resident presented their recycling bin, and the recycling bin was not returned. After contacting the contact centre and spending quite a bit of time to get an answer, the answer that the resident got is that the bin must have been eaten by the waste machine or damaged. That was over 2 months ago. This resident still hasn't received a replacement recycling bin. Can the cabinet member inform me whether we do have any replacement recycling bins? And if so, why this recycling bin hasn't been presented to a resident who would like to be helping the target numbers by being able to present their waste for recycling?
Thank you, Councillor Jones. There's a few questions there, Councillor Tagg. Any more questions on paragraph 8, please, before the leader answers? No, Councillor Tagg.
Thank you. I will, Councillor Jones, I'll pass it to Councillor Hutchins in a moment, but thank you, Councillor Brockie. And I think, as he clearly says in the report, we've moved to these new indicators now that are taking a while to bed down. And I think we have to wait and see how they develop. And of course, you mentioned the exterior factions, but I think, we're usually around 80% of the measures. And you will have noticed this time that there is a page of measures actually in indicators in Councillor Hutchins' area which haven't been reported because of the swap over to the new figures, which were reported at the next meter quarter, which will go to scrutiny later in the year, and I'm sure that will have got us up above the 80%. But I'll hand over to Councillor Hutchins now for that specific question, whether we can answer it now or we can take it away, relating to the bin collections.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. If I can meet with Councillor Jones after this meeting and get the full details, I can then make sure it's dealt with swiftly. Thank you.
are thousands of bins. Well, you just said there were about probably hundreds, probably not thousands spare bins. So it is the situation of getting to the bottom of what happened. I'm looking at our officer here because obviously each vehicle has a video on it, and we know that people have video doorbells as well, which popping up footage all over the place to give another angle. So I think getting to the bottom, not here, but getting to the bottom of it is really important. I think if we can pass the details on to Councillor Hutchins, and then obviously Andrew Bird and the team can look into that and get this resolved. But 2 months is a long time, I must agree. So it must be a complicated issue and get to the bottom of it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So you're happy with that, Councillor Jones, that you two can coincide with each other after the meeting? Lovely. Okay, members, paragraph 9 is about the forward plan. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 9, please? Councillor Fox-Hewitt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's just a relatively simple question. Can the leader confirm that the constitution has been amended to provide that his own Twitter account now announces the decisions of the Borough Council and not Cabinet nor the sovereignty of Council, as appears to be the decision-making process at present? Thank you.
Okay, before you answer that, Councillor Tagg, any more speakers on paragraph 9, please? No, Councillor Tagg.
I think I defer to our Sentinel reporter in the room who actually announces the results of the Cabinet as and when they're happening. I don't quite understand, other than me posting the front page of the report to say we were meeting at 4 o'clock yesterday, that they and they link to the. Oh right. Oh no, sorry, no, that's well. But you know as well as I do, Councillor, that there are press releases and there's a press timescale, and that's not unusual that happens pending the Cabinet decision. I think it did say in the press release from our officer that was the case, but also obviously we interpret it and we make our political capital out of it as well, which we do as politicians.
Thank you. Members, that concludes the leader's statement. We will now move to the next item of business. Members, the next item of business is the reports of the chairs of the scrutiny committees. This is agenda item 8, which is at pages 33 of your agenda. A report is attached for the Health, Wellbeing and Environmental Scrutiny Committee. This being the only scrutiny committee that has met since the last meeting of the full council. The report is here for your information and noting. Please can the report be received, please? Thank you. Members, the next substantive item of business is the reports of the chairs of the regular committees. This is an agenda item 9. The report can be found on pages 35 of your main agenda. A written report is attached for the Licensing and Public Protection Committee. The Audit and Standards Committee has not met since the last meeting of the full council. A verbal update will be given for the Planning Committee. Councillor Paul Northcott, would you like to please give your update, please? Councillor Northcott.
I'd be delighted to, and thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Since the last meeting of the full council on the 26th of July, 2023, there's only been one meeting of the Planning Committee, and this was Tuesday, the 15th of August. The September meeting that was due on the 12th had to be cancelled because of the lack of business. So back in August, there was only 2 substantive items on the agenda that evening. The first application was a minor development, and it was Kidsgrove Pentecostal Church, where planning permission was sought to change of use and conversion of the church to 12 supported housing apartments, which the committee, after lengthy debate, supported subject to conditions. The second substantive item was also for a change of use, but this time it's for an application for minor development to 23 to 25 Merriott Street, Newcastle. This was a change from a previously approved planning change of use scheme to one that also included a change of operating hours to allow a circus and arts workshop and the heritage exhibition area to operate. This was also passed by the committee subject to conditions, Mr. Mayor. The other item on the agenda that night, the committee also received an update on number 5 Boggs Cottages, Keele, which was included in the supplementary report for that evening. That, Mr. Chair, is the conclusion of the business for that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Northcott. These reports are here for information and noting. Please can the reports be received, please? Thank you. All agreed. Members, the next substantive item of business is motions of members. A copy of a motion concerning low emission zones and low traffic neighbourhoods can be found on pages 37 of your agenda. The motion has been proposed by Councillor Mark Holland and seconded by Councillor Simon Tagg. Councillor Holland, would you like to speak on your motion, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the motion appearing in my name and in doing so declare my interest as a trustee of the New Vic Theatre, whose premises are on Etruria Road. This is a timely motion coming as it does on the heels of the expansion of the Greater London ULEZ last month, which I think is a perfect example of how schemes like this are ineffective, costly and unethical, and why we should stand opposed to them here. The expansion of the ULEZ is a move that the London Mayor's own independent assessment states will result in a negligible improvement in air quality. It will cost residents and businesses an estimated £200 million, which will go into the Mayor's transport coffers, and it will expand the Mayor's network of surveillance cameras by 2,750. Mr. Mayor, there are two reasons very close to my heart that I'm proposing this motion tonight. The first is that, as members are aware, this authority is still the target of a ministerial air quality directive requiring us to take action in respect of a breach in statutory maximum levels of NO2 concentrations on Basford Bank. Now, I've been very vocal in the past about the terrible impact that a chargeable clean air zone like the ULEZ would have on our residents and businesses. Our cabinet has heard that a low emission zone would filch £200 million out of the North Staffordshire economy, hammer businesses and deter people from visiting our town centre. I am proud that our leadership has consistently opposed measures that dip our hands into drivers' pockets, but this means we are left reluctantly on a pathway that will see a blunter instrument, a bus gate installed at the Etruria junction, backed with penalties for non-compliance. Who, I ask, will benefit from that? Not the drivers of older or heavier vehicles westbound towards Newcastle. No, they will have to drive the long way round, putting extra strain on other roads through Port Hill, Maybank and Woolstanton, running their engines for longer and making the air quality on these roads worse. Not the residents or pedestrians of Basford, Port Hill, Woolstanton and Maybank, who will have to breathe in these additional emissions. And not the businesses along Etruria Road or the award-winning world-class New Vic Theatre, who collectively provide employment to local people and contribute millions to the local economy. That's why I'm pleased the administration of this council has called on government to look again at the figures to determine whether this bus gate is genuinely necessary or whether a natural compliance is being achieved that will render it, like the ULEZ expansion, completely worthless and without merit. As a council, we have a really very strong record of working cross-party
2 minutes, Councillor Holland.
and air quality issues, especially air quality. Everybody from our MPs to the independent LGA peer reviewers has been impressed by our leadership and determination to tackle the odour nuisance and public health blight originating from Wally's Quarry. So we don't need lessons from DEFRA or from European eco-lawyers about pollution and air quality. As a local council, our record is solid. We are investing in new fleet to reduce our emissions. We're cutting out single-use plastics. We're measuring our progress against the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, all thanks to initiatives from both parties represented in the chamber tonight. I mentioned at the outset that there is another reason why I'm proposing this motion tonight, and the second is that in the city where I grew up, they have recently implemented a low traffic neighbourhood, and I want members here to know that there have been 150 schemes of that nature implemented since 2020, including 4 in, to pick one council, the London Borough of Haringey. Now, ministers have rightly criticised the poor quality of implementation of these schemes.
1 minute, Councillor Holland, please.
I'll wrap up in a minute. In the most recent round of the Active Travel Fund, no low traffic neighbourhood scheme has received financial support because the Department for Transport is not convinced that these are benefiting communities. Mr. Mayor, we believe in an approach to air quality, public health and emissions reduction that is based on measures that work. Scientific and technological progress towards cleaner engines, new infrastructure designed in accordance with the NPPF's strong presumption in favour of sustainable development, and active travel through opening up public choice and a stronger public transport network. We do not support low emission zones, low traffic neighbourhoods and their associated apparatus. I commend the motion to the council.
Thank you, Councillor Holland. Councillor Tagg, would you like to second the motion, please?
I certainly would, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to second the motion to say no to ultra low emission zones and low traffic neighbourhoods in our borough. The idea of a 15-minute cities and 50-minute neighbourhoods has gained prominence in recent times, with several local authorities, including Bath and North East Somerset Council and Oxford City Council, embracing these concepts. And the practical imposition of this often takes the form of draconian measures such as vehicle filters, buzz gates, bollards, automatic number plate recognition, recording systems, coupled with a schedule of fees and penalties and tax by another name for the non-compliant. While the intention behind these measures seems noble, and of course we look to reduce pollution for the obvious reasons, we must critically examine the consequences they cause local residents. Our concerns are grounded on the evidence that the ultra low emission zones and the low traffic neighbourhoods are proven to be largely ineffective in their stated goal of reducing pollution and emissions. In many instances, these schemes have merely pushed vehicles onto alternative routes, exacerbating traffic congestion and pollution elsewhere outside of the zones. And this has not only failed to address the core issue, but also poses safety risks to residents, road safety, and also pollution risks elsewhere. These measures can have a detrimental impact on the local economy by discouraging visitors and imposing additional costs on businesses and town centres, which are suffering, as we know, and therefore slowing economic growth and job creation. Our borough relies on local businesses and the influx of visitors and workers who contribute to our local economy. Can we afford to implement measures that would undermine these vital aspects of the local economy? I think no. And there's also an ethical dimension to these measures. There's concern that some councils, and also the London Mayor, the Labour London Mayor, is creating revenue generators and tools to exert pressure over the individual freedoms rather than to generate, to go after the combating of pollution that they claim to be trying to address. So I think we've always got an amendment on our table here, which is available for everybody to see. I think to nail the first thing is that there is independently fact-checked to say that the government-funded agreement did not force Sadiq Khan to extend ULIS to cover greater parts of London. So it's essential to underscore that Newcastle Borough Council has a remarkable environmental record and has demonstrated a strong commitment to reducing carbon emissions as outlined in our Sustainable Environment Strategy. And also our commitment to be net zero as a council by 2030 and as a borough by 2050. And as Councillor Mark Holland just said, eliminating single-use plastics, embracing the national United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and supporting nature recovery to help create a sustainable goal. I firmly support this motion because we oppose the introduction of all of those things which we've talked about, the low emission zones and the traffic neighbourhoods. But additionally, we should continue to work to prevent the imposition of the buzzgate on Basford Bank while engaging constructively with our local members of Parliament to achieve this. And just to clarify, Cabinet made its decision to endorse the outline business case that then went forward to actually look more into the issue of the buzzgate. And at that point, it is minuted that we wish to see our MP take action to try and prevent this from happening by making the case for natural compliance. And during the investigation, the outline business case, it has seen that the original exceedance on Basford Bank has now been cleared up, and that there is no exceedance there, but there is on another part of the
1 minute, Councillor Stagg.
Thank you. Which we always said that the Basford buzzgate was an amateur cracker nut. It's now the smallest peanut you could ever imagine. So we want to work with our colleagues in Stoke and the County Council and with our MPs and with the government to make the case that we don't have to have that buzzgate. So in conclusion, by supporting this motion tonight and opposing the implementation of any restrictive measures and seeking alternative solutions to address pollution and traffic issues, we are demonstrating, and this council should demonstrate by supporting this motion, a commitment to sustainable, business-friendly operations in the borough. And I urge all members to support this motion tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. I understand that Councillor Jones intends to move an amendment which is on your desks. Councillor Jones, would you like to move your amendment, please? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to start in introducing the amendment that I do appreciate the author of this motion's noble intent and do agree with the intent of the motion. This amendment is put forward by the Labour Group this evening to correct some factual inaccuracies in the original motion and outlines the full context of the challenge we face in Newcastle-under-Lyme in ensuring this isn't just about sustainability, and I think that's a mistake. This is about health, that we protect the health of our residents through eliminating the air pollution that blights parts of our borough. I will note that we agree with the movers of the original motion that steps to introduce a nature of vehicle charging, be that ULEZ, LES or 15-minute neighbourhoods, would be a mistake and will detrimentally impact our local economy and place inappropriate financial burden on our residents, particularly those at the lower end of the earning spectrum. Similarly, we also agree that a bus gate on Basford Bank is not the preferred solution to hazardous levels of air pollution in that area. But we need to remind ourselves of the importance of this issue. Parts of our borough are routinely blighted by levels of nitrogen dioxide and particulate matter that are extensively documented to be hazardous to human health. We must also acutely remind ourselves of the landmark ruling of air pollution playing a contributing factor in the sad case of 9-year-old Ella in London. But we need to be factually correct. Vehicle charging zones do reduce the levels of nitrogen dioxide and particulate matter. There is evidence of that. It's cited in Appendix B. They also reduce those levels in the roads that border that. Also, if you were to look at the report, it's cited in that. Therefore, if we're to argue against their introduction, and I do argue against their introduction, we need to come up with other solutions. It's no good just simply saying we don't want this. We need to come up with a solution. Otherwise, our residents will be facing these hazardous levels. But how have we got to this point? Firstly, expansion of vehicle charging schemes such as ULEZ is being pushed forcibly by the Conservative government, as we see in Appendix A, where then Secretary of State for Transport, Grant Shapps, held the Mayor of London to ransom on expansion of ULEZ as a condition of the funding settlement for the Transport for London. Here in Newcastle, steps to reduce air pollution levels are a consequence of a ministerial directive from then Secretary of State Theresa Coffey, Under Secretary of State, I should say, now Secretary of State, which we can see in Appendix C, where council proposals are benchmarked in their ability to reduce air pollution against a charging zone. So in our proposals, this council has to demonstrate how it will deliver a reduction in air pollution against a benchmark of a known way of reducing air pollution. It was this council, alongside the Conservative-controlled County Council and City Council at the time, that proposed the concept of a bus gate on Basford Bank, outlined in the North Staffordshire Local Air Quality Plan. It was Cabinet in 2020 that approved the bus gate on Basford Bank as its preferred option and authorised the proposal to be sent to government for approval. The bus gate is not something that's being foisted onto this council. The bus gate was actively proposed by this administration. To indicate otherwise is factually and morally incorrect. So this amendment seeks to reverse the decision of Cabinet, which, according to the comments from the seconder of the motion, it seems wouldn't be that much of an issue to obtain, to reverse its decision to approve the bus gate as the preferred option, to work with the County Council and the City Council to propose an alternative option. We can't simply say no, we need to present an option, an alternative option that we can then seek support from local MPs to lobby for. And that option will get the support of
Councillor Jones, 1 minute.
That option will get the support of this group. Bring us to the table and we will help you form that option, because we don't want to see the bus gate or the charge zone, but we recognise that we owe it to our residents in those areas, particularly our younger residents in that area, that they are entitled to clean, good quality air that isn't going to impact on their health. So in moving this motion or this amendment, I simply say we are willing to support you, but we cannot support a motion that is factually incorrect and that is politically charged without setting out the entire context and state. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Fox-Hewitt, would you like to second the amendment, please?
I would. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased to second these factual and pragmatic amendments tonight. I do, like Councillor Jones, I have some support with elements of the motion. I think we all agree that the Buzzgate proposal does not enjoy the support of residents nor members of the chamber. However, the tone of the motion and some of the assertions made are quite unwelcome. This motion, like so many of the motions from the Conservative group on carbon reduction, biodiversity, natural habitat, they offer no firm commitments to dealing with the problems that the planet and society in this borough faces. And I'm particularly disappointed to see the motion brought this week of all weeks, when the eyes of the country are on this borough as we host the Climate Expo and Sustainability Conference this weekend at Keele University. Yet again, the group opposite and its members put the extreme views of the leadership over the needs of those we represent. They failed to deliver any local policy framework that delivers health and prosperity. And just to demonstrate how disingenuous this motion is, I must end by referencing the request to work with the MP, Mr. Aaron Bell, on the environmental cause. The same Mr. Bell who voted not to develop a plan to eliminate transport emissions by 2030, voted not to require public authorities to act on precautionary principles, rectify damage at source and the polluter pays principle, voted not to make greenhouse emissions to zero by 2050 a core mission of the Advanced Research and Invention Agency, voted not to ban the burning of certain types of vegetation in areas with peat soils, voted not to require ministers to have due regard to the target of net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050 when taking actions including setting up agricultural subsidy schemes. So I think that points out that it's politically charged. Our amendments seek to offer a viable alternative to the ministerial directive, and I hope that they'll be taken on board and that we can all support the motion as amended. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I second.
Thank you, Councillor Fox-Hewitt. I will ask Councillor Holland and Councillor Tagg whether they will accept the amendment. Councillor Holland.
No, Mr. Mayor, we will not.
Councillor Tagg. Okay, the amendment has not been accepted, so we can now move to the debate whether to amend the motion as per the attachment. Members, please raise your hands if you wish to speak on the amendment, please. Councillor.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to speak in support of the amendment proposed by Councillor Dave Jones. I think the amendment adds some balance and political context to the motion without changing the motion's key message, that this council does not want and does not need bus gates or zones, be they be of the ultra low emissions or just the low emissions variety. I think across the political divide, there is a great deal of agreement that the zones and bus gates do not provide lasting or satisfactory solutions. Traffic is simply displaced, with the results that areas outside the zones become more polluted and congested. And I also don't believe it's right, particularly in the present climate, to hit residents with punitive charges, which will add to the financial burden imposed on hard-pressed households, a point which I think is well captured by the amendment. I agree with the previous speakers. We need to be constructive. We can't simply oppose bus gates and zones without offering alternatives. And residents of Newcastle have a perfect right to breathe clean air. And perhaps one of the flaws, I think, in the wording of the original motion is that it doesn't provide enough examples of the action the Borough Council could take on its own or in partnership with the County Council to improve air quality without resorting to bus gates and zones. Alternatives such as tree planting, changes to traffic management, even moving a pedestrian crossing can improve air quality. And that's been proved by, in practice,
Councillor.
by some councils. Putting in place safe cycling and walking routes will also help. And we could also make, and I did want to make this point specifically, Mr. Mayor, we could also make use of green walls, which involve planting vegetation across surfaces. Now, this is a green initiative pioneered by Staffordshire University. And if you think of the layout of Basford Bank, Mr. Mayor, it could actually work extremely well. What we need, I think, is strong political leadership and funding from central government. Now, the motion, the original motion, includes the words clear and ambiguous. So let me be clear and unambiguous. If the motion falls, if the amendment falls, then I will support the motion because I have to be consistent. I can't campaign against the Basford busgate and then come here this evening and oppose this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Jones, would you like to sum up on the amendment, please?
Sure, thank you. I shall sum up Councillor Gorton's contribution. I agree with Councillor Gorton that charge zones and bus gates are not what we seek. They're not what we're after, but you can't say no and not have an alternative. And the reason you can't say no and not have an alternative is because we will have an imposition of a charge zone if there is no alternative. If we do not propose an alternative for how to reduce these hazardous levels of pollutants, this is what we're talking about. We're not talking about, you know, trying to make the air look nice. We're talking about human health. Hazardous levels of pollutants, then we will have a charge zone imposed. That is enforced not just by the ministerial directive, which actually took a High Court judgment to induce into the government in order to create. But that's what we'll end up with. And this motion as it was unamended, had no indication of actually coming up with a plan. It was simply a no, we don't want this. Well, you know, I'm a harsh parent and my children often go, no, I don't want to tidy my room. And I go, well, you know what the alternative is? You don't get to eat. So they tidy their room. And I'm afraid the government, I'm sure, will take a similar approach. So unfortunately, I wait to see the outcome of the vote. But I agree with Councillor Gorton as well. For those councillors who have campaigned against the bus gate, it would be a hypocrisy to then vote against a motion that says no to a bus gate, no matter how ineffective that motion is. But I accept that he has to stay true to what he has campaigned on and respect him for that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Tagg, would you like to sum up on the amendment, please? Did you want Councillor Tagg or Councillor Holland first?
I think our constitution gives me a right of reply and then a further right for the leader immediately before any vote to speak. So in doing so, in exercising my right to reply, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to thank the movers of the amendment for their amendment to the extent that they have agreed with me. I'm afraid we're not able to support the amendment on this side of the chamber tonight. Before we move to formally vote down the amendment, I will say just a couple of things. I enjoyed very much the appendices. I think more amendments should come with more detailed appendices. Unfortunately, they're wrong. The motion states, the amendment states at paragraph 2, in providing some of this political context, that the London Mayor's choice to expand the ULEZ was directed by the Conservative Secretary of State. It is not the case. It is a canard. It is a huge quacking canard, and a very, very brief cursory search of the internet will show many independent fact-checking websites that confirm that that is not the case. And it is certainly, sorry, Mr. Mayor.
I apologise as well. Councillor Allport, can you turn your phone, please?
It is certainly the case that that's not accurate. So if for no other reason, we're going to have to vote down the amendment because the political context provided is faulty. It is false. It is not an improvement to the text of the motion as drafted. I have to say also that I feel that the summoning of the memory of a dead child in support of scoring political points, I found to be in particularly poor taste. I'm certainly not convinced either by the comments of the opposition that the motion amendment does not materially change what's in front of us. It changes the word ineffective to the word effective, which I think is about as sincere repudiation as you can get of a motion. So I'd be very delighted to hear more comments when we have a debate on the substantive motion, but I will be voting against this amendment, and I would encourage other members to do the same. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holland. Councillor
Yeah,
Tagg?
just a few comments to sum up. I think there was a claim that this council isn't taking any action on air quality. I'm sure Councillor Hutchinson, even in the short time that he's been in the portfolio, could tell us about the air quality equipment which we're purchasing to ensure that we monitor air quality across the borough to ensure we keep it at a level that's acceptable. And then there's the Wally's Quarry issue, or everybody in this council has played their part in that. So I think it's just rubbish to talk about that. I think this stuff about we haven't got a plan, we don't know what we're doing, we aren't putting anything forward. We have met with the Secretary of State. I reported that back to this council, a meeting with the Secretary of State. That was publicised also in the local press about looking to reach natural compliance and have measures to reach natural compliance. Instead of spending £4 million on a buzzgate, already of spending £2 million on to get to where they have at the moment, we need money to try and scrappage schemes, turn to electric for business vehicles that use that bank to get rid of that issue there. I will refer Councillor Jones also to the leader's statement in November 2020, when I actually make the case for that. We need to look at the additional modelling for current and future post-COVID traffic patterns, because we believe those have changed. I was right, because it's come back. And the original places which were exceeding are no longer exceeding because of the change in traffic patterns since the end of COVID. And then we go on to say we're writing to the government, we get our MP involved to ensure that we reach that natural compliance in a sensible way, rather than a hammer to crack a nut that has turned out to be an even smaller nut now. And I just also remember, I'm sure fellow Conservatives could say at that meeting that Councillor Jones thanked us for putting forward the outline business case going forward. Didn't see anything about that we should be challenging it, which was part of the leader's statement, but he welcomed it on behalf of his group back in November 2020. I think also it's been said about measures to mitigate fumes and exhaust from cars. Green walls have been mentioned by Councillor Gorton. That's great. This administration has brought in the first green wall around the bus station part as a pilot, paid for through County Councillors Fund to the Climate Change Fund, initiated by myself to ensure that we test out a green wall. We've got Keele University that are helping us to monitor that, and we can certainly roll those out elsewhere, I think. And as part of our yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As part of our commitment to our carbon capture areas, planting more trees in strategic positions, because we know that they take in carbon emissions particularly, and also other substances as well. That's the right thing to do. So I think, and then lastly, just the Climate Expo has been mentioned. That's come out of the Climate Commission, which I've been a member of since the beginning. And the Staffordshire group of councils will next week sign up to be, I'm announcing it too early, the decision hasn't been made yet, it happens all the time, is that a decision will be made on next week to join the Climate Commission, and I will be the representative on the Climate Commission from Staffordshire authorities. So I think that's just bunkum that we're doing anything. We're actually doing a sensible proposal here with this motion. And I think the politicisation of the motion, Mr. Mayor, comes from the amendment, but the amendment has no plan. We've been criticised about no plan, and I've just said we're trying to reach natural compliance and working with everybody we can to do that. There is no plan within here, so that's why we should vote this amendment down.
Thank you. The amendment has been moved and seconded and will now be voted on. All those in favour, please raise your hands up high, please. All those against? Yeah, the amendment is lost, I'm afraid.
You're still on the item, because you know you need to do it.
Sorry, I blame Jeff for his pages there. Right. All right. There. Okay. We now move to the debates for the original motion. Members, please raise your hands if you wish to speak on the original motion, please. Councillor Stubbs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I will sadly be forced to abstain on the matter of the motion tonight. Whilst I recognise the importance of addressing environmental concerns and ensuring the vitality of our local economy, I am deeply troubled by the flaws in the language and reasoning employed within this motion. Firstly, let us acknowledge the aspirations of 15-minute cities and 15-minute neighbourhoods. They are concepts that are now realised through low emission zones and low traffic neighbourhoods. These ideas hold merit in their intentions to create more sustainable urban environments. However, it's the execution of these ideas that raised the grave concerns. Physical infrastructure like vehicle filters, buzz gates, bollards, AMP recording systems, coupled with punitive fees and penalties, have become the hallmark of those zones. This approach, I argue, is deeply flawed. The motion contends that ultra-low emission zones, low emission zones, and low traffic neighbourhoods are ineffective at reducing pollution and emissions, merely displacing vehicles onto other roads, potentially increasing traffic and pollution at their perimeters. Whilst this is a valid concern, it is essential to recognise that these measures can be tailored to optimise and minimise such issues. We should be working towards refining these initiatives rather than outright rejecting them. Furthermore, the motion states that these measures are harmful to our local economy, deterring visitors and burdening businesses with unnecessary costs. However, research indicates that well-planned low-traffic zones can have the opposite effect. They can stimulate local economies by encouraging people to shop, dine, and spend time in these areas, ultimately bolstering local business. The claim that these zones are unethical tools of government designed to generate revenue and control individual freedoms is a serious one. While it's prudent to scrutinise government actions, painting these measures with such a broad brush undermines the potential for balanced and informed decision-making. Environmental protection and public health can coexist with responsible governance. Let us not forget Newcastle Borough Council's commitment to environmental stewardship and sustainable development. The motion appears to be at odds with the Council's past efforts to reduce carbon emissions and embrace international sustainability goals. In conclusion, I abstain from voting on this motion because it offers no constructive path forward. Instead of outright opposition, we should be engaging in more nuanced dialogue, focusing on improving the effectiveness of the measures, mitigating their economic impact, and ensuring that ethical concerns are addressed. Newcastle Borough Council has the potential to lead by example in finding the delicate balance between environmental responsibility and economic prosperity. We must seize this opportunity to seize the future of our community wisely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Addock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'd just like to say that this council does take air quality and air pollution incredibly seriously. Look at the work we're doing around aiming to become a net zero council, the work we're doing around in working with partners to install electric vehicle charging points, around the urban tree planting, which has been very prevalent this year, including the Lyme forest. And I think we can see that there are right ways to go about tackling air quality and there are wrong ways, such as bus gates and so on. And natural compliance does have a role to play. Those on the licensing committee will see at the last meeting that we had, we were able to revoke the Little Madeley air quality management zone, largely due to the natural compliance that had come in that area. So that can play a part. And also look at the work that this council's done, really commendable on Wally's Quarry and how seriously we've taken the air quality there. And the battle we've had there to really fight for the residents in terms of the air pollution there. So I think it's fair to say this council does have a strategy towards managing air quality, but I think we can all agree that there are right ways to do that and there are definitely wrong ways to do that. And that's why we should support this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Tugg. Oh, sorry, Councillor Weedham. I am jumping the jump. Sorry, Councillor Weedham.
Just two comments, really. It would seem if we followed the example of Mayor Khan and London, as long as you pay your £12, you can take a gas guzzling, gas emitting vehicle into the city centre. We don't want to follow that. I support Councillor Holland's motion completely. One of the groups that have approached me quite sort of vociferously, really, being gentlemen who are what I would call one-man bands or white van man. They're plumbers, they're electricians, they're one-man builders who all have to and had to buy diesel cars and were recommended to buy diesel vans in the past because that was the cheapest way and the best way for them to carry out their trade. Now it seems diesels are wrong. they try and transfer to petrol. They are wrong. They can't manage the distances they have to travel with electrical vehicles. So we try and say, well, okay, you can't come into the city centre. We're supposed to be advocating enhancing the city centre with trade, with business, and yet at the same time, the suggestion would be, if we don't follow the motion by Councillor Holland, that we're going to block those very people from plying their trades to the local businesses, and that cannot be right.
Thank you. Councillor Sweeney.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of things. The enthusiasm that Councillor Stubbs has for 15-minute neighbourhoods and 15-minute cities was touching. I was wondering perhaps he wanted to do a house swap perhaps with the Labour candidate from Haringey for the election. He could live in Haringey and the Labour candidate could live in Newcastle. The trouble with all these things is that not 1 gram of the gas is going to be taken out from this. It is just simply going to move it from one place to another. That's why the whole thing when it was set up was bonkers. It's bonkers then, it's bonkers now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more speakers, please? No. The motion has been moved. I do apologise. Oh, we've got Councillor Holland next. So I did put on the councillor tab. Councillor Holland.
Thank you. I'm grateful to members who've contributed, including those members on the Labour benches who may feel compelled to support the motion in spite of the amendment not having been carried. I feel very strongly that the motion says what it says, and it's in plain, unadorned language. It says what I meant it to say, and I believe that we can take a strong stance here tonight that will place us above other authorities and unambiguously so. So I'm very, very grateful to anybody who chooses to vote for the motion. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Tagg.
Nothing much further to add, Mr. Mayor, other than to say supporting the motion. I think we've obviously there's splits in the Labour group over this, but I can say that the Conservative group is united behind this motion and we'll be voting for it in a second.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Any more speakers, please? That's fine. Let's move to the vote. The motion has been moved, seconded and debated. All those in favour, please raise your hands. I think.
Put on your speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry about that. I wish to seek the view of the monitoring officer on this because by refusing the amendments, members are tonight now being asked to support a motion that seeks the approval to refuse to comply with a ministerial directive placed on this authority without seeking the approval for an alternative proposal. As such, I would draw your attention, Mr. Mayor, to paragraph 4.7 of the Constitution, whereby if a motion is deemed to be inappropriate or unlawful on the advice of the monitoring officer, the Mayor shall be at liberty to decline to include that on the transaction of business. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't find the motion unlawful. It's a motion before the council. It's not a cabinet or council or other decision. Yeah, a motion is not a decision report. I don't find the motion unlawful.
Thank you. The motion has been moved, seconded and debated. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against? Any abstentions? Okay. It's 27 for, 1 abstentions, sorry, 7 abstentions and 1 against. The motion passes, I'm afraid. Members, the next substantive item of business is motions of members. A copy of the motion concerning low emission zones and low traffic neighbourhoods can be found on page 37. I'm sorry, I'm reading my script here. Members, the next agenda item on item 11, members' questions. I've received 2 questions for the leader and cabinet members. This can be found on pages 7 of your supplementary agenda. As each question is posted on the screens, I will ask the leader or the relevant cabinet member to respond. The member asking the questions may then ask a supplementary question. Could I remind members that if they have a supplementary question, it must be a question and not a statement. And it must be concise, focused and relate to the subject matter of the initial question and answer. The first question is from Councillor Ian Wilkes regarding the reinforced autoclaved aerated concrete, RAAC, is for Councillor Sweeney and is on the screen now.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Wilkes, for the question. Does the holder agree with me that Sir Thomas Bowie Academy should receive retrospective funding from the government? I absolutely do agree. And I think it's something myself and the leader are going to take up with the MP to take it further to Parliament, because I think it's absolutely ludicrous that they preempted the situation, they've got it sorted, and they expect to stand the cost. So,
That's part of the question, Steve.
Oh yeah, I didn't see that. Sorry about that. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, we've reviewed the situation in terms of Newcastle, and our engineer says he has no concerns at all with all the council-owned property within Newcastle. And if you knew the engineer properly, you'd know when he has no concerns, then there really are no concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Can all councillors actually see the screen and can read? Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. Councillor Wilkes, do you have a supplementary question? No, that's absolutely fine. Thank you. I'm not saying that, Councillor Wilkes, honestly. Councillor Sweeney, your response, please. No, so we carry on. Thank you, councillors. The final question is from Councillor Jacqueline Brown to the leader regarding Wallis Quarry, and it's on the screen now. If we can switch, who's in charge?
Do you want me to answer?
Yes,
Mr.
please,
Mayor?
Councillor
Just briefly, on behalf of Councillor Sweeney, he has been adding some doctor's appointments to do with an eye problem, and he's going to have an operation over it. So I think he was sort of squinting and all of that no need to defend him, because he's perfectly adequate to defend himself. But thank you for the question, Councillor Brown. And as you're probably aware, Council Cabinet yesterday received its monthly update on Wallis Quarry, which we receive at every meeting. And we questioned the Chief Executive, as we do at every meeting, about the issue related to the environment agency, particularly those breaches that have been Category 3 and Category 2 that have been announced since our last meeting. And should they have triggered taking legal action, enforcement action by the abatement notice? The Chief Executive reminded us that securing the abatement notice took over a year and dedicated efforts of officers, and any prosecution would now involve a higher burden of proof beyond all reasonable doubt, and would again be a hugely lengthy process. We were also reminded that any enforcement of the abatement notice would need to be carried out in accordance with our enforcement policy, which anticipates an alliterative approach. It focuses on securing ongoing compliance rather than punishing non-compliance. Before we can contemplate further legal action, we have to identify a statutory odour nuisance within the zones identified in the abatement notice. Consideration would then have to be given to whether this odour event was a result of the breakdown of the best practical means on the site. Then officers would consider any such breach against our environment policy, which would require proportional and say the word at this hour, use of power. And this is not just because we're trying to put barriers up here. This is a process that's legally has to be gone through to take any action. But let me be clear, this is not a simple case of that it smells, let's prosecute. We have to build that legal case again. So officers have found that there is, if there was a strong case for enforcement, they would not hesitate to move forward to the courts, obviously firstly to the Secretary of State to enable us to take us to the courts to take it forward, because obviously the will of this council is that we would take it forward if there is a need to do that. So hopefully that's clarified the situation with those breaches again, which are, again, you asked me there relating to the attitude of denial. I think, depending what meeting you're in with Red Industries, they go from denial to actually what they said at the court case and the abatement notice. I think we have to keep an eye on this. We are keeping an eye on this. And of course, as Councillor Adcock said earlier, in the previous debate, this council can be proud of the action it's taken and the action it's continuing to take to ensure that our residents' interests are kept at the front of this. But there is a process to go through, and I understand people on social media think that there isn't. We can immediately, that me or this council can suddenly decide to take legal action. No, we can't. We have to go through a process that has to go through a policy that's been set out, and more councils have them to move forward. And we will not hesitate to do that if we have the evidence to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Councillor Brown, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was particularly interested in the sort of move back to the sort of denial and uncooperative sort of outward facing attitude of the company at the moment. There's a meeting on the 28th. Is the leader anticipating that this attitude would continue, because the Environment Agency are due to present their findings there?
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Tagg, your response, please.
On the 2 points of cooperation, I think within the abatement notice agreement we have, I think the chief executive reported back to us that the company are cooperative. They give us the information we require. They allow us to question them over that. So I think on that, I think when it comes to the liaison committee, as I say in the past, particularly the liaison committee, there is a sort of a denial that the problem is theirs, and there is certain people on the liaison committee that will try and, I believe, make the case on behalf of the operator that the smell comes from somewhere else, like the drains or council vehicles or a new housing estate up the road and stuff like that. So I think we have to deal with that on the liaison committee. But at the meeting next Thursday, you're quite right, Councillor, the EA will report on these breaches, and those members of the liaison committee, this is of course recorded and put up for public viewing later, will be questioning them closely on these breaches. And also our only opportunity to publicly question the operator is at the liaison committee, where we use that hour and a half next Thursday to ensure that we do that on behalf of residents.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Members, agenda item 12 is our next item to receive petitions from members. I have not been aware of any handed in this evening. Members, agenda items 13 and 14 relate to urgent business and confidential business. I have no urgent or confidential business that needs to be considering this evening. Therefore, this concludes the business for this meeting, and I therefore declare the meeting closed. But before you go, can I actually just give these certificates out to the Guild of Mace Bearers, which their motto is Semper Fidelis, which means ever faithful. So I'd like to present them to Glenn James, Jennifer Otter, and also Peter Shaw, which I'll pass you on. Can we give them a round of applause, please? Thank you. Therefore, this concludes the meeting and the business is now closed. Thank you.
Bye.